Welcome to Ednovate Attendance Procedures training. This is a step-by-step guide to walk you through the daily and monthly procedures to keep attendance up to date and accurate. So we'll run through an overview of why it matters, and then we'll go through running the daily absence list, daily absence calls, reconciling attendance, a guide to the attendance flags, some case studies to understand how to use them, the ADA checker, and teacher monthly verification forms. So attendance is really important for a few reasons. Number one, we want to make sure that the data in our SIS and Illuminate is accurate so that every single day we can quickly inform families of any absences after knowing which students are in school right away in the morning. It also allows us to analyze attendance data in a really detailed way to track for interventions that might need to be implemented, what interventions have already been done, and maybe any school-wide initiatives that we want to start. Tracking attendance carefully is also important because average daily attendance, which is commonly referred to as ADA, is tied to funding we receive from the state and is a really large part of our funding. And because of that, it's included in the annual financial audit. So keeping really detailed, accurate records and the backup that goes along with that is really important for the whole network. And lastly, but certainly not everything, attendance reports are submitted to our authorizers in the state on a monthly basis, so it's important for everything to be right every day to be ready for those monthly reports. Okay, so I'm going to show how to run the daily absence list. So I am in the Brio sandbox right now. So you can search for missing attendance. And we'll search on the first day that we're coming back. And you'll usually be doing this at first thing in the morning. So you want to see any teachers that haven't submitted attendance for AMA. Right now, there is no attendance missing because the day hasn't actually started yet. But if you were to run this on a normal day, then you would see a list of any teachers who haven't taken attendance here, and those are the teachers that you need to follow up with to take attendance as soon as possible. So a GChat, a phone call to their room. If they aren't responding because they have a million other things that they're trying to do, send somebody to their room. Once you have all of the teachers' attendance, you can run this report as many times as you want to make sure that it's blank and all teachers have submitted their attendance. Then you do the absence reconciliation. So you can search for just that, absence reconciliation, and we're going to do it for 114. You'd be doing this every day, so you'd just be doing it for whatever day it is. There's just no school in session right now, and we'll load that. And for this fake day, we have one absent student. So this is the list that you would use to send out to your team, showing them who is absent for the day so that teachers and the rest of your team are aware of that and can send you any errors just in case a teacher accidentally marked a student absent who is accidentally in school. Okay. So daily absence calls, we always call anytime a student is not in school. We're required to do that because our students are minors, and obviously we would want to do that so that their parents are informed and we can problem solve what's going on, why they aren't in school. The number one goal when you call is to try to have the parent bring the student into school. That's, of course, if the absence isn't legitimate. Like if they're able to come into school, we really want to encourage them to come, even if they're going to be late. We want to emphasize that we can only really support the student if they're actually in school. That's how they're going to be able to do their best. And if they aren't able to come in that day, or actually regardless of whether they're able to come in that day, because they've already missed some, ask them to send a note within 48 hours to excuse that absence. Verbal excuses over the phone do not count. And make sure that these calls are logged. If it's in Illuminate, you do it as a comment in the mass attendance update, or you could do it in Dean's List. if calls were made in an automatic calling system like Bright Arrow or Mongoose, as long as that system keeps a log that you can go in and download as a report later, then there's no need to also log that in Illuminate or Deeds List. And to log that comment in Mass Attendance Update in Illuminate, you would go to Mass Attendance Updates. And I'm going to change this to our mock date. We'll find me some attendance. And let's say that Jennifer was absent that day. That's actually, let's say it's an excused absence. Then we can just do something really simple like sick, talk to mom. And when you save the page, then that comment is saved and it shows up in the student's attendance summary. So we can always run reports later and go back and verify that we called. So every day you want to reconcile your attendance. It has to be done every month, but it's recommended to do it every day because it's going to be the most accurate if you do that, and it's not going to pile up as a really time-consuming project at the end of the month when you need to submit your attendance report. So in order to reconcile, you can do it under mass attendance updates or under absence reconciliation. So you can go in here where we were before on mass attendance updates and change these to reconciled absences, like say that it was an unreconciled A, which is the unreconciled absence flag that teachers would log. Then you would go back in and mark them as either excused or unexcused. Or same thing if Miguel was marked as tardy, just the T is the unreconciled one that a teacher would put in, then you would go back in and specify that was an unexcused late arrival, etc. The other way to reconcile absences is by going to absence reconciliation, and we will go to our fake date, load, and you can do it student by student. So you'll see all of the students who were marked absent that day, and we can click on Justin. We're going to go to attendance by student, and we're going to go to our attendance period, which when you're in session, it'll automatically load the most recent one. We can check this box to check the whole day, or we can check individual boxes. And then let's say that was an excused absence, then it'll mark an excused absence for everything that I've checked, and I'll click save. So now Justin's absence that day is reconciled to absence excused. Okay, guide to attendance flags. So I'll run through these as a table, and there's also a flow chart to help understand the nuances of this. If a student is present, they're obviously marked present. Teachers can use this flag, and you don't need to change it. It's considered reconciled. Another present flag that's considered present is in-school suspension. So the student is in school, but they aren't in their normal classes, and teachers cannot use that flag. They would probably mark the student as absent because they haven't seen them, and the office needs to go in and mark that as in-school suspension for any schools who have that day. If a student is at a school function like sports, a field trip, interviews, a college trip, that would go under F for school function. So going over the tardy attendance flags, the T, just tardy, is the unreconciled one that teachers can use, and then the office needs to go in and mark one of the other three flags, indicating whether the absence was excused or unexcused or truant or not. The first one is the L, the excused late arrival, and that is used anytime when the student is late to school and has a note, and it's marked in the period in which they arrived. So if they were late with a note to second period, then they would be marked with an L for second period, and they would be marked as an excused absence for advisory in first period. For the UL, an unexcused late arrival, that is for any late arrival that's not considered truant. So the student is less than 30 minutes late to school and they don't have a note, and the office needs to go in and mark this one. Teachers can't use this one either. And again, that would be used for the period in which they arrived. So say they arrived to first period just a few minutes late, they would be marked to first period as an unexcused late arrival, and they'll be marked as absent in advisory. The truant tardy is marked for any time a student is more than 30 minutes late without a note, so it's unexcused, and they'll be marked as a truant tardy in the period in which they arrived, just like the others, and they'll be marked as a truant absence for any periods that they completely missed before they arrived. For absences, the A is the one that teachers can use, and then the office needs to go in and reconcile it and choose one of these other three absences. So the first one is a truant absence. That's any unexcused absence that's over 30 minutes. The second one is an unexcused absence less than 30 minutes. This most often would only apply to an unexcused absence in advisory in first period, because they could come in just a few minutes into first period and they would need to be marked as an unexcused absence less than 30 minutes for advisory, so it doesn't count as a truant absence, and then they would be marked as an unexcused late arrival in first period. But again, that's not truancy because they arrived within 30 minutes of the school day starting. And then an excused absence is used for any absence that is excused. And then the last two absence flags are suspension. So anytime the student is out of school because they're suspended, and the office would need to go in and mark that. And for early dismissal. So anytime that a student is leaving the school day early, they will be marked as an early dismissal for the period they left in and then all of the periods after that. So this is the flow chart to better understand the absence flags. So, is the student absent? Yes, they are. Is the absence excused? In this case, yes. Then they will be marked as an excused absence. If the absence is not excused, we need to know a little bit more information. Is the absence more than 30 minutes? Yes. Then it's a truant absence. And if it is not more than 30 minutes, then it is an unexcused absence less than 30 minutes for that period that they missed. If the student is not absent, so they are in school, then the teacher marks them as present and the office doesn't need to reconcile it. It also might be the case that the student is at a school function, in which case the office does need to mark it, or that the student has in-school suspension, the office would need to mark that. So a review of tardies. Is the tardy excused? No. Is the tardy greater than 30 minutes? Yes, then it's a truant tardy for the period in which the student arrived. If the tardy is less than 30 minutes, then it's an unexcused late arrival for the period in which the student arrived, and it's an absence for anything before that. If the tardy is excused, then it's marked as an excused late arrival for the period in which the student arrived, and an excused absence for any periods missed before that. You can run through these case studies for attendance flags, so start thinking through and building your muscle for when to use which flags. It's assuming that there's a morning advisory and 7 class periods to help you out with the nuances. And then the answers are on the next slide to be able to quiz yourself. So moving on to the ADA checker, every month attendance is double checked before ExEd runs the attendance reports, and then those are submitted to our authorizers and to the state ultimately. It's recommended to check the ADA checker throughout the month to take care of any errors throughout the month so it doesn't build up at the very end in the last couple of days you have before it needs to be turned into ExEd. So running through the ADA checker. We will do it for month 1 as practice. So you want to make sure that the enrollment begin and enrollment end makes sense. Most of the time these numbers are going to be fine, but take a quick glance over that. Attendance reconciliation will show you any day for a specific student that isn't reconciled, that they have this unreconciled A or an unreconciled T. And you need to go in and specify whether it's excused or unexcused or truant or non-truant with the attendance flags. And you could do that on the individual student pages. And then for students not receiving ADA, it'll tell you the number of days they're missing ADA, but doesn't give you any more detail on this page. So you need to go to the students' attendance page to see what's going on there and why they are missing attendance. So for that, you would go to attendance by student and then go through the whole attendance period and see why that student is missing ADA for a day. It usually means that attendance was accidentally left blank at some point. The next one is entry date exceptions. So this is Illuminate flagging any potential errors on enrollment or withdrawal dates. So it's showing you any time that the enrollment date did not match their first day present or that their withdrawal date didn't match their last day present. Sometimes these are right. Like for example, the student Brandon was enrolled on the first day of school on August 6th, but didn't come to school until August 9th. That's correct. He was actually enrolled and he was just absent. But sometimes you'll notice that there was an entry error and maybe this student was supposed to have their entry date on 8/13 and you would just go in and fix that. The leave date should match the last day present so that their withdrawal date is backdated even if they withdraw a couple weeks after the last time that they were enrolled. And then look over the cumulative versus ADA table and just make sure that the numbers all make sense. And once you've done that, let XED know the attendance has been reconciled and verified by the deadline. The XED always sends out a reminder. It's also published in your school's compliance tracker and the operations Google Calendar to stay up to date on all of those deadlines. And last but not least, we have monthly verification forms. So monthly verification forms matter because much of our funding comes from attendance. So the accuracy of it, like we were saying before, is really important. And during a financial audit, they will ask for monthly verification forms signed by teachers, verifying that the attendance is indeed correct. And you can do that by going into Illuminate and going to monthly verification forms. And we're going to do it by teacher so we can hand out the sheets to the teachers. We'll always do all teachers. We want any teacher who's taken attendance to verify it. And we just need to do it for advisory. And we'll say that we're doing this for attendance period 1. You always do it by the reporting period, and you don't need to include lunch counts. Submit, and it will download a PDF of the attendance form for every single teacher. And the teacher needs to sign and date right here. It's recommended that you do this at PD to make sure that you get them all back. Just make sure that you get back the signed form from every teacher and make any corrections and Illuminate that the teacher notices. And if there are corrections made, have them sign another verification form after it's been corrected so that the verification forms always reflect exactly what was in Illuminate. And you would do this process after the entire month has been reconciled so that you know you won't be getting any more excuse notes back. That deadline has already passed, so nothing should be changing in the attendance for that month. And there's screenshots here that can walk you through that. as well. And the last thing on monthly verification forms is that the PDF that is downloaded will also include single period attendance reports, and that is a report where Illuminate is letting you know any potential errors. For example, when a student was marked present all day but absent in third period, and they're saying like that's probably an error. Go back and double check that and correct anything that needs to be corrected. If you do need to make corrections, again, make sure that you reprint the monthly verification forms for the teachers to sign so that's always exactly matching what is in Illuminate. Thank you.